Sox Weekly with Ashish Sharma.
Hey everybody, welcome to an all-star edition of Red Sox Weekly here on BostonSportsRadio.net. Last time I talked to you guys was last Thursday when the Red Sox were getting ready to face the Baltimore Orioles in their last series of the first half. So we'll talk about what's been a pretty good first half for the Sox, as well as what lies ahead now that the trade deadline is almost upon us. I'm looking at my calendar here. It looks like about two and a half weeks until the trade deadline. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Overall, it's been a stellar first half for the Sox. You know, I think we all knew Adrian Gonzalez was a good hitter in San Diego, but I don't think we realized just how good he is. I mean, he is perfect. Just look at his numbers. This guy's a freak. And we really didn't know anything about him when he was in San Diego. You bring him up to Boston, where it's a big market, everyone watches baseball. All of a sudden, everyone in baseball knows this guy's name. Unbelievable. Carl Crawford, on the other hand, this is the guy we were actually more familiar with, considering that he was in our division for like 8 years, and he always killed us whenever we faced him. He's sort of had a rough go at it in his first year, you know, having a little bit of a tough time, but he did show signs before getting hurt and going on the DL of breaking out of it. You know, he did sort of get on a roll there. So, you know, considering the 2-10 start that the Red Sox got off to, I don't think anyone can complain about the fact that they're 55-35 at the break. I mean, that's the best record in the American League, second best in baseball behind the Phillies. They have a 1.5 game lead over the Yankees in the AL East. Really, there's not much to complain about. Just remember back to April, we were thinking this might end up being a year where they're trying to play 500 ball, and if they can get even close to the Yankees in the AL East standings, then it would be a good year. I mean, can you imagine that's what we were thinking back in April? If we could just maybe get close to the Yankees and maybe compete for the wild card. I mean, we went out and we got Adrian Gonzalez and Carl Crawford, and that's what we're thinking of. Now we don't even have to, we can just look back in that lap. 55-35, second best record in baseball. It's a distant memory, thank God. You know, so thumbs up on this end. So let's get to some news that broke today. David Ortiz has received a 4-game suspension for the incident that took place with Kevin Gregg last Friday. For those of you who missed it for whatever reason, I'm sure if you're a real baseball fan you would know by now, but I'll just go ahead and give the old refresher. Got into a little altercation with Kevin Gregg, pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles, after the Red Sox were up by, I believe, 7 or 8 runs at that point. It was late in the ball game. It was like the 8th inning, and Kevin Gregg came inside 3 straight times with a fastball to David Ortiz. Papi didn't like it. He started walking out to the mound. He was stopped. Benches cleared. Nothing happened after that. Then Gregg comes back inside on a 3-0 count. Papi swings this time, and he flies out to straightaway center field. And then all of a sudden a brawl ensues because Kevin Gregg gets off the mound and starts yelling at David Ortiz to run to first base. And Papi doesn't like it. He throws his bat down, and he charges at Kevin Gregg. Benches clear. And did David Ortiz break an unwritten rule here, an unwritten baseball rule, by swinging at a 3-0 pitch when your team is up 7 or 8 runs? Yeah, I mean, yeah, he did. I mean, that's something that you just don't do when you're up by that much. But considering what happened leading up to that, I can see where he got the idea to swing. I was actually listening to WEI earlier today, and apparently Terry Francona admitted that he was yelling at David Ortiz to swing on that 3-0 pitch because of what happened. But ultimately, he did break an unwritten rule. I think Kevin Gregg was equally at fault. I mean, he pretty much started the whole thing by coming into Papi with 3 straight fastballs. But, you know, in either case, I think Major League Baseball got it right. Both of them got 4-game suspensions. And actually, some of that bad blood actually carried over to Sunday's finale. This is actually really interesting. Rookie Kyle Whalen was making a spot start for John Lester, who just went on the DL at that point with that lat strain. And he got ejected in his Major League debut for throwing at Vladimir Guerrero. I think that was the 3rd batter he hit. And I don't know how often that happens that a guy can say, yeah, I got tossed in my Major League debut. But when he hit Vladimir Guerrero, I think at that point Marty Foster was like, okay, enough's enough, you're out of here. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But in that game, Mike Gonzalez of the Orioles was also tossed because he threw behind Papi. It was sort of a carryover effect over the next 2 games. And he will get a 3-game suspension in addition to the 4-game suspensions that were handed out to Gregg and Ortiz. David Ortiz, however, is expected to appeal. So we will probably see him play tomorrow night against lefty David Price in Tampa Bay. And we don't know how long. I mean, with appeals, it can really, take days or weeks depending on how long it takes Major League Baseball to make a final decision. I don't know if they'll knock off any games on this one. They might maybe, once they hear his side of the story, knock it down to a 3-game suspension. But if they do it quickly enough, it looks like he might end up sitting out the very next series after this one, which is Baltimore, surprisingly, so in their house in Camden Yards. So if that's the case, it might not be such a bad idea for David Ortiz to set that one out in case the Orioles are still mad about that. So, anyways, let's get on to the feature event, the All-Star Game. 6 Red Sox players actually made the trip out to Phoenix. Josh Beckett, Jacoby Ellsbury, Poppy, Youkilis, John Lester, and Adrian Gonzalez all went. And Home Run Derby. I don't know how many of you guys watched it, but it was actually pretty interesting this year. I'll always watch Home Run Derby. It's one of those things that kind of gets boring in the later rounds, but you watch it anyways because it's Home Run Derby. You got nothing else to do on a weeknight. So it was actually it was a lot of fun. David Ortiz was protecting, or I should say defending his title. He won it last year. So he was actually teamed up with Jose Bautista. He was a captain this year. It was pretty interesting that Major League Baseball made it like that, American League versus National League. David Ortiz was a captain. He picked Adrian Gonzalez on his team. Robinson Cano from the Yankees. He also had a Jose Bautista. So, a pretty stacked team. On the other side, it was Matt Kemp and Matt Holliday and Ricky Weeks all under captain Prince Fielder for the National League. But the funny thing is the American League just absolutely crushed the National League in Home Run Derby this year. I mean, it was sad. At one point, I think the American League had something like 3 times as many home runs as the National League. It was so funny. I don't know why that is, but we just absolutely killed them. I think at one point it was like American League 53 home runs, National League 17, or something like that. I mean, I could be exaggerating, but at one point it really seemed like it was that bad. But in any case, the final came down to Robinson Cano and Adrian Gonzalez. Yeah, of course, it came down to Red Sox Yankees. But ultimately, Robinson won. But I can't say I was that upset about it. I would have liked to see either David Ortiz or Adrian Gonzalez, obviously, because I'm a Red Sox fan. I want to see one of my guys win. But I wasn't, I was kind of happy for Robinson. It's a little strange to admit that I was happy for a Yankee, but, I mean, his dad was pitching to him. It was a fun event. It was a nice moment. So as a Red Sox fan, whatever, it's a cool moment. David Ortiz and Adrian Gonzalez, they all had a lot of fun with it. They congratulated Robinson Cano. So it was fun. I guess the only guy that would be rubbing it in my face right now would be one of my college roommates that I had that was a diehard Robinson Cano fan. And we'd always go back and forth, and I'd say Dustin Pedroia is better. No, Robinson Cano is better. We'd go back and forth, in school, and I guess he got the last laugh during Home Run Derby, but you know what? Petey wasn't even there, so it's irrelevant. Okay, so let's now actually get on to the actual All-Star Game. I was reading today that apparently it was the lowest rated All-Star Game of all time. Not shocked, not surprised, considering the fact that Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, Justin Verlander, CC Sabathia, David Price, James Shields, Beckett, Longoria, I mean, all these names, really, they didn't play. I mean, some of them were there, most of them were there, but none of them played for various reasons. Jeter bowed out. He said he was mentally and physically exhausted. A-Rod is undergoing some kind of procedure. Verlander, Sabathia, Shields, and Price are all were ineligible, I should say, to pitch because they last pitched on the Sunday preceding the All-Star Game. So from an AL perspective, or from any perspective, it was, I don't want to say a boring game, but it was kind of like, where are the stars? I mean, yeah, everyone there is an All-Star, but you'd expect to see Verlander or Beckett or Sabathia or Shields or Price get the ball. But no, I mean, like, the National League kind of had an advantage because they had Roy Halladay and then Cliff Lee back-to-back. So, I mean, I guess that's why we lost. It's a little strange seeing the National League win 2 straight All-Star games now after seeing them lose pretty much in grand fashion every year from 97 to 2009. And as a result, the National League now has home field advantage in the World Series. And you know what? This is a golden opportunity for me to absolutely let loose and vent on why I hate home field and how it's determined in the All-Star Game. Shameless plug alert. I actually wrote a piece called 3 Major Flaws with the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. It's on BostonSportsRadio.net. And I honestly think it's one of the dumbest rules that Bud Selig has ever instituted in baseball. Now, there's a lot of things I don't agree with the commissioner about. This one probably takes the cake. Let's take an exhibition game, that is the All-Star Game, that's supposed to be a fun event, and let's say, okay, you know what? Whichever league wins this meaningless game, let's give them home field in the World Series. I think that is the most ridiculous thing in the world. I don't know how that makes sense. I mean, why don't they? I mean, I understand what his motive is. He wants to restore interest in the All-Star Game. He thinks more people are going to watch because of this. But honestly, I think the way it should be done is just give home field to the team with a better record. That's how you do it in the League Division Series. That's how you do it in the League Championship Series. You know what? That's how it should be done in the World Series. I think it's plain stupid. Give the team with a better record home field, period. Okay, I love the All-Star Game, but I hate having this thought in the back of my mind that this will count in October. I guess I never complained about it as much when the AL won because we benefited from it twice in 04 and 07. But now that the NL is winning all of a sudden, it's starting to annoy me a little bit more. I heard Lou Merlone say this on Mutton Merlone on WEI earlier today, and I guess he's right. He's got a point. Maybe the Phillies will get the best record in baseball and go on to the World Series. So it might not matter anyways because you know what? They'll have home field whether or not they get the best record in baseball. But if they do, then you know what? Then it kind of just doesn't matter because hey, you know what? Even if this stupid rule wasn't in place, they'd still get home field under my rules. So I guess that would make us feel a little bit better, and I guess we wouldn't be complaining as much. But now it's almost like I'm rooting for an NL team to have the best record in baseball and make it to the World Series just so I don't complain. Even if the Sox make it to the World Series, if the NL team that we're facing, let's say the Phillies or the Giants or some team, has the best record in baseball, then I guess I won't care as much. I won't mind the fact that the NL has home field because, you know what? At the end of the day, even under my rules, they deserve to be there and have home field advantage. So it's almost like the All-Star Game had nothing to do with it. But it doesn't always work out that way. It rarely works out that way. And that's something that needs to be addressed and something that needs to be changed. That is not the way to do it. I mean, it's a hell of a lot better than how they used to do it back in the 90s and before where Bud Selig said, okay, we're just going to alternate every year. This year, American League gets home field. This year, NL gets home field. This year, AL. This year, NL. I mean, that was even dumber. Let's just go year to year and give. I mean, you're just basically awarding a league with home field. I mean, if anything, this is a step up from that, which is what I mentioned in my piece. But both systems really suck, to be honest. I mean, they really need to change it and just give the team with a better record home field advantage in the World Series. I think that's the way it should be done. That's the way it's done in every other sport except for football, where everyone knows the Super Bowl is a neutral venue. But honestly, that's a major change. That's a major change that needs to come to the game of baseball. All right. Anyways, the Red Sox will open up a quick 6-game road trip with a couple of 3-game sets in Tampa and then Baltimore, like I mentioned. And then they'll come home to face the Mariners. Tomorrow it'll be a battle of the lefties. Andrew Miller gets the start, going up against David Price. So, yeah, glad to get some actual baseball back. You know, I haven't seen a regular season game since Sunday. It almost feels like opening day is tomorrow again. Well, okay, maybe not like that, but it definitely excites me to see some actual Red Sox baseball after having a 4-day layoff here that we call the All-Star break. So, looking forward to that. All right, that's pretty much all the time we have on this edition of Red Sox Weekly. Be sure to stay tuned next week when the trade rumors will probably be heating up. We've already heard names like Carlos Beltran and Matt Garza thrown around. So there'll probably be plenty of that to talk about next week. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Boss Sports Radio. That's BOS Sports Radio. And you can follow me, Ashish1989. That's AASHISH1989. That's 2 ways in there. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next Thursday. Take it easy.